Good morning, everybody. Hi, it's Mrs. Miko, and today we're going to be talking about your assignment for the conclusion of Huck Finn. Before we get into the content, I just wanted to say that it's April 1st and traditionally April Fool's Day, and I read somewhere on Facebook that saw a GIF that said something like, "We don't need April Fool's Day because what's going on in the world is the biggest April Fool's joke we could possibly have imagined," and I'd have to agree with that. So I hope no pranks today for you guys. On a personal note, I just want to tell everyone that I am super proud of the way that you've all transitioned to online learning. Really doing a great job. But I miss you. I miss seeing you guys every day. I miss our interactive classes. It's just not the same. And I wanted you to know that absence makes the heart grow fonder. And I certainly feel the absence of our classroom and seeing you guys every day. I hope you're all doing well. I hope you're handling this as best as can be and that your families are all healthy. All right, so done with the mushy stuff. All right, so what is this assignment? So what you're going to be doing is you're going to be crafting a letter to the editor. So I don't know how familiar you guys are with letters to the editor, but a good place to start would be to just simply type into your search engine, letter to the editor, and you will get any number of examples that you can look at. So we're going to go to the first one here, which is the New York Times. All right, so letters to the editor are opportunities for citizens to raise concerns, questions, arguments on issues that are currently of importance. And so what you can do is simply, write a letter expressing your point of view, and the editorial board at various publications will select ones that they think are representative of the community at large and publish those for people to be able to respond to as well. So if you scroll down here, right, here's the latest. Just click on this first one here. So readers praise those who are risking and offers ideas how to help, right? So here's a first one. This is from Benjamin Morris in Brooklyn, right? So these are all various letters. Now, these are shorter than what I'm asking you to write, but it gives you an idea if you just scroll along some of these examples of letters to the editor from any publications. You could type in letters to the editor, Philadelphia Inquirer, and you'll get some examples. So first thing I would do is, take a look at some of these examples so you get an idea what letters to the editors actually are. Okay? All right, so let's take a look at your assignment. All right, so here it is. You are going to, the situation I'm presenting you with is that the Ventures of Huckleberry Finn is being challenged by a group of community members, including parents and students, and that the idea is that Huck Finn is no longer going to be taught as part of the school curriculum. So you are writing this letter as you, student, sophomore at St. Basil Academy. That's how you are writing the letter. And you have to decide what position you are going to take on pen work. Sorry, I don't know why these sticky notes pop up every single time. Why did this do this? Oh, it took a picture of my screen. Sorry. Ugh. Let's get out of that. Sorry about that. Okay. So, honestly, I don't care. I really don't care what position you take on this. The idea is that you are taking a position that you can support and that you can argue effectively and honestly. Okay, so I don't know why this is giving me a hard time here. All right, so ugh. Really sorry. All right, so what I want you to think about is that, you have a couple different options in terms of positions on this. Okay, so obviously the first position you could take is you are opposed to the idea of removing the Adventures of Huck Finn from the curriculum. You believe it should be taught, and you have some really good reasons why you think it should be taught based on the fact that you've just read it and discussed it, okay, in class. You could argue that you are absolutely opposed to having it taught, and you have reasons that you think it shouldn't be taught at all. Perhaps you want to do the version where the N word is removed and replaced with slave. Maybe you think that's a pretty good compromise, and you think that should be the direction that we should go. Maybe you think that it shouldn't be taught in the classroom, but that it could be assigned for outside reading, and that would be a good compromise as well. Okay, so whatever position you take, and again, it does not matter to me what it is. What matters to me is that you can defend it with claims and evidence from the novel. Okay. All right. So it is still something that requires academic language, meaning this should not be a letter that sounds like something you texted to your friends or your another adult. It is something that you hopefully want to be selected to appear in the newspaper, in which case then it needs to have academic language. This is not a friendly letter. This is a piece of academic writing. So don't forget that. Use formal language. You still have to follow MLA format, which means 12-point font, Times New Roman, 1-inch margins, and double spacing. Okay, so we're still adhering to that. What you don't need is you do not need the header, meaning, date, my name, your name, and the class. You don't need that, right? Because we're going to be using a letter format instead. All right, so I know what you're all thinking. When is this going to be due? All right, so it's going to be due a week from today. Now, that being said, I believe that since next week is supposedly Easter break, that we are still going to be off on those days, meaning we won't have class. So we evidently have class based on the schedule as the calendar as it stands right now. We would have B1 on Monday, B2 on Tuesday, and then be off Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. If that is what's going to happen, obviously then we don't have class on Wednesday, April 8th. I still wanted to give you up until the 8th to be able to turn it in to turnitin.com. So you can certainly decide that you want to turn it in on Tuesday, and you can do that. I will create the assignment page on Turnitin, and you can upload that whenever you want. But know that even though we technically don't have school that day, I will be accepting your project, your assignments up until 11:59 on Wednesday, April 8th. Okay, so if you don't want to wait that long, by all means, you can get it done sooner. But this is going to be a pretty substantial part of your beginning fourth quarter grades. So you want to make sure you do a good job on it. All right, so what will this letter look like? I have some pretty specific parameters that I want to go over. All right, so you're going to have an introduction. And that little introductory paragraph is where you will have your argumentative thesis, okay? And that's going to be you explaining what position you want to take. So if you are advocating that it be completely removed and banned from the curriculum, that no one should read it, it's offensive, then that needs to appear as the last sentence of that little opening paragraph. If you can choose to just say, I think it should be banned, and then go into your body paragraphs, or you can, in your thesis, mention the reasons that you think that is the case. Totally up to you. It doesn't matter to me in terms of that type of statement, but it needs to appear in the opening, and it needs to be clear what position you are taking from that statement. All right, so after the introduction, body paragraph number 1. one reason in support of your chosen argument position, and then you need to support that with a quote from the novel. Okay, so if you are thinking about paragraph structure, the topic sentence should contain the reason you're arguing in support of your thesis. So, for example, if you believe that Huck Finn should not be taught, that's the position you're taking. The topic sentence of body paragraph number 1 should be, I believe that Huck Finn should be removed from the curriculum because of the prolific use of the N word. And that should be your topic sentence. So now you're going to prove that, right? And explain why that is a reason it should be banned. And then you're going to go in and say, it's offensive, it hurts people, and we don't want to have an educational classroom experience where people are feeling hurt, right? That there's no reason to have a book that has that word in it. And then maybe you're going to use a quote that shows the use of the word and explain why that is particularly offensive. Okay, so that would be body paragraph number 1. Body paragraph number 2 is a second different reason in support of your position. So again, the topic sentence should state what your position is. Additionally, I believe that Huck Finn should be banned because it is glorifies the South during slavery, and there is no reason for us to be reading a book that does that. All right, so that's your second argument, for example. Then you're going to go in and again explain your reasoning. You have to explain why that is a valid position for you to be taking and have one quote from the book in support of it. So obviously you'd find a quote that you think is particularly offensive in terms of the way it looks at slavery, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Now, the third paragraph is where you're going to acknowledge an argument from the opposition and then explain why that argument is not one that should be followed. So if you are suggesting the book should not be taught, you might want to say, it is commonly understood and argued that Huck Finn is a quintessential example of realism and dialect and is an important piece of American literature. All right, so maybe that's the argument you're going to suggest in as to why it should still be taught. That's what people on the other side of the argument are suggesting. Then you're going to go in and explain why you don't agree with that. Okay, so that whole paragraph is, I know that people say this, right? But I'm suggesting that that's not a valid argument, and here's why. Okay, so 3 body paragraphs, 2 in support of the position you're taking, 1 acknowledging an opposing view and explaining why that opposing view is not valid. All right, then obviously you're going to need a conclusion where you're going to add some real emotional language in support of the position you're taking, and have a concluding signature. You will need a works cited page for Huck Finn, right? Okay, so definitely your works cited has to have the Huck Finn book that you're using on your works cited page properly formatted. But if you are relying on any other additional outside sources that helped you determine your position, then you need to cite those as well. And you need to make sure that there are in-text citations letting me know where you are borrowing information from another source that's not your own. Okay, so you are not required to use outside sources, but if you do, use one, you have to cite it properly. Okay, and we're going to talk more about that. All right, so what should you do in terms of getting ready for this? All right, so the first thing I would do is, like I said, go on, do a little search, read about letters to the editor, right? Then decide which position you want to take, and then doing a little outline of what that's going to look like, right? So how would you defend your position? All right. You do not need outside sources. Don't worry about that. That should not be there. Okay. All right, so your goal is that you are trying to persuade someone to go along with your argument. So you want to make sure that your language and tone are one that is persuasive, that is going to make people agree with you, and show, primarily for me, show that you took away something from reading this book. Okay. Um, obviously, obviously you need to make sure that what your final version that you turn into me is edited, revised, and free from grammatical errors, spelling errors, obvious mistakes, mechanics. Okay. So you want to make sure that it is well put together and free from those kinds of common errors. Okay. And again, it does not matter to me. It absolutely does not matter to me what position you are taking, as long as you present it in a clear, logical, and persuasive manner and support it by showing me where in the novel you came away from this. Okay? All right. So you might need to do a little reading from outside sources to help you formulate your position on this. And that's what this section is. So you see here, right? Sources for debate. So these, now again, you are not required to cite additional sources, but if you take information from them, then you are required, right? Using work that's not your own has to be cited, else it's plagiarism. All right, so these links will take you to various articles that deal with this issue. Get rid of the pen, sorry. Stop inking. All right, so if you just cut and paste into the search browser. All right, so you'll see the first article is from the New York Times from January 2011. Light out, Huck. They still want to civilize you. All right. So here's a little discussion. You can read this. That might give you some ideas on what position you want to take. Now the best one is actually the best one, I think, is this actual last one here. So again, you can just cut and paste into your browser. All right, so this is also from the New York Times. They have this page called Room for Debate, right? And this Room for Debate is all about this issue of Huck Finn. All right, so here you see all of these authors down the left-hand side. They all have articles in here, pros and cons on Huck Finn, right? So here's the first one. This is Jill Nelson, and here's her position. Then you can go to a different one, right? And here's another person. This is David Matthews. And here's his response and his position. So you can just click next and go to the next one. So all of these are different authors' positions on this issue. Okay, so those are ones that I have provided for you. Of course, you are more than welcome to do your own searching for information, and it's readily available to you. Type in Huck Finn debate, and you'll see any number of articles. Again, I'm not requiring you to cite from these secondary articles, right? You're only required to use quotes from the book. But if you do use information that you find in these extra articles, you need to make sure that you include citations to them. All right. We're going to skip that for a second and scroll down. All right, so here is a breakdown of where all the points are coming from for this assignment, and also a rubric. So these things go hand in hand. All right, so these things go hand in hand. if you're looking to think about, okay, why am I losing points in this part? It's because here, right? So if you're over here in this category, little to no attempt to argument with no subclaims or claims that distract from little indication of critical thinking. If I'm circling this, then that likely means that you are up in here losing points. Okay, so the two go hand in hand, really. I just wanted to make sure that you understood kind of where I'm headed with this. So if you're over here in the exemplary proficient category, then obviously you're going to be getting more points in this part up here. All right, so those two things go hand in hand. Use those to help you. All right, this last thing is kind of an example of what this could look like. So you want to, like I said, you don't have to worry about the heading, right? Traditional heading in terms of a paper, because this is a letter, so it needs to look like a letter. So you're going to use block structure, which means that everything, you don't have to worry about indenting, everything lines up right on the left margin like a block. All right, so you need the date of your letter, right? And then you need some sort of salutation. So here, this can, whoopsie, I keep doing that. Sorry, guys. So here, right, to whom it may concern, or you can write, dear members of the school board, or, editorial board, however you want to write, the opening, but you need to do that. And it ends with a colon, okay? And then opening paragraph, so something along these lines. You obviously are going to say that you are a student at St. Basil Academy. You need to do that in your opening. And then here, so I'm writing in response to the school community's recent decision to remove The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, which is the name. The name of the book is not Huck Finn. The name of the book is The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. So please keep that in mind. Having recently read and studied this, I am okay. Now, so here's my thesis, right? I adamantly insist that the community reverse the decision and continue to allow the novel. Now, you could stop it there, right? You could stop it here. Right, you could decide that I'm going to put a period there and end it, or you can continue and then list your arguments that you are, right, you can list the argument. You can, because blank and blank, period. Okay, so that's totally up to you. If you want to include your reasons briefly in your thesis or not, totally up to you. All right, so then you're going to have body paragraph number 1. We went over what that looks like. Body paragraph number 2, and then body paragraph number 3 is obviously the counter argument discussion. All right. Then you need a paragraph of conclusion. So something along the lines of, thank you for your consideration of my argument. And then you want to make a assertive, emotional, some kind of an appeal, right? That in the ending here as to why you can reassert the arguments just briefly that you've made in your letter, or you can argue some sort of more emotional appeal here. And then you want to make sure that you sign off appropriately, because again, it is a letter, right? So you want to make sure that you have your name as in handwriting, and then an appropriate, you're going to put your address, going to put your address there. Oh my gosh. I'm so sorry. I don't know what I just did, but we're going to pull that back up. Sorry, guys. But you want to make sure you end it, and then use your school email address as the email contact. Okay. All right. So that should give you an idea what your a letter should look like. All right. So that's a pretty good overview of this assignment. I'm going to end this video here, and then in the next video, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the OWL Produce site and what that looks like, and some housekeeping. Okay, so that's it for this video. Thanks.